earners. Niggas got
If I show y'all what's really going on in this house,
Free that hand too, man.
be indicted. If I show y'all what's really going on in this crib, you got niggas. You turn the camera around, there's like 6 people in there, at least 5 of them caught homicides with me. So we really do this shit, man. Niggas like.
Let's talk about one of the most jaw-dropping, facepalm, how did he not see this coming stories in the history of hip-hop. This ain't a story about some rap beef that got out of hand. This ain't about a op pulling up. This is about a man, one of the most legitimately feared street rappers to ever pick up a mic, who handed the federal government everything they needed to lock him away for 45 years. Not a snitch, not an op, not an undercover, his own mouth, his own phone. His own Instagram, his own rap lyrics. Abdul West, known to the world as ARAB, basically walked into federal court and said, "Here's the case, Your Honor, let me rap it for you." And the crazy part, he still doesn't think he did anything wrong. Let's start from the beginning, because to understand how this whole thing collapsed, you gotta understand who ARAB really was and what he was really about. North Philly raised him and the streets claimed him. Abdul West was born September 26, 1982, in North Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Now, if you don't know nothing about North Philly, understand this, it ain't for the soft. It's one of the most historically violent, economically neglected, and street-coded neighborhoods in the entire country. The kind of place where your environment either breaks you or builds you into something the rest of the world can barely comprehend. Abdul grew up hard, real hard. He's talked in interviews about witnessing domestic violence and drug abuse from his father. Wasn't a silver spoon in sight, just concrete, corner boys and survival instincts that get activated real young when you come up the way he did. By the time he was a teenager, Ab was already embedded in street culture, not as a passive observer, but as a participant. The block wasn't just where he lived, it was who he was. But here's the thing about ARAB that separated him from a lot of dudes. The man had genuine talent. He could rap, not that mumble, lean-sippin', auto-tune rap that was flooding the culture. ARAB was raw, he was lyrical, and he was specific. He talked about things with a level of authenticity and detail that couldn't be faked. When ARAB rapped about the block, you believed it because it was real. When he talked about shootouts, you felt the tension.
I don't make no money off rap. I extort people. You know what I mean? That's what I was doing. I was extorting motherfuckers. I'm just a rapper. There's 10, 15, 20 guys that I call when there's trouble. When I see these motherfuckers, and they can't even be around people. They savages, man. You see, it's about 20 savages out there. I'll run all of them. They listen to what the fuck I say. They killed me. Some of them shot motherfuckers yesterday.
When he said somebody got touched, the whole city knew what time it was. He built his reputation first as a battle rapper, cutting his teeth in the trenches of Philly's underground scene. And he was nice, undeniably nice. He had the kind of delivery that made other rappers uncomfortable, that menacing calm, like a man who's never got to raise his voice because you already know what's behind his eyes. He got recognized. He got cosigns from industry heavyweights. Drake himself shouted out ARAB on Back to Back, one of the most famous rap disses of all time. Swizz Beatz was rocking with him. He was on the cusp of something real. So Jude had options. That's the part that makes this story hurt even harder. He genuinely had a lane in music that could have taken him all the way. But the streets don't let go that easy, and ARAB, whether by choice, by loyalty, or by habit, never really left them. OBH, record label or drug ring, the feds said both. At some point, ARAB co-founded Original Block Hustlers, OBH.
What's up, man? OBH Records, King Ab. I got my own record company. I signed myself. Check this out. There's $500,000 on the table, man. This is $500,000 on the table. I just feel like y'all got too excited when Birdman paid me.
On paper, it was a record label, a creative collective, a vehicle for North Philly artists to get their music out, build a brand, and stack legal money. That was the story anyway, and there were real artists on the label. OBH had genuine momentum in the underground rap world, particularly in Philly. Dark Low Charles Sally was signed to OBH and was building his own buzz. The label was moving. But behind the scenes, federal prosecutors say OBH wasn't just a label. It was a front, a very convenient front. According to the feds, ARAB and his crew were running a large-scale drug trafficking operation out of North Philadelphia from at least March 2017 all the way through June 2018. We're not talking dime bags and loose cigarettes. We're talking crack cocaine, heroin, and methamphetamine. Weight, serious weight. The kind of operation that attracts very serious attention from very serious people in very serious federal buildings. The feds alleged that the drug supply was coming all the way from California. ARAB and his co-defendant Jamal, Bionic Has, Blanding were allegedly flying out west to meet with a cocaine supplier and cop bricks. They were then bringing that work back to Philly, flipping it, and distributing it throughout North Philly and surrounding areas. The money was flowing. The operation was sophisticated enough that they were renting high-end, upscale apartments in places like Old City and Center City, bougie parts of Philly where law enforcement attention is lower, and using them as stash houses under fake names. Smart thinking, right? Until it wasn't. ARB's co-defendants included Jamal Bionicaz Blanding, Jamil Meliano Hickson, and Hans No Breaks Bras Gadsden. All of them were charged, all of them were looking at serious time. And the man the Feds said was at the top of the whole pyramid, calling shots, moving product, and allegedly ordering bodies, Abdul West, ARB himself. The murder that changed everything. Now here's where the story gets real dark, real fast. In 2017, a man named Robert Johnson was shot multiple times on the 4000 block of Benner Street in the Wissineming section of Philadelphia. Johnson was dead, and the Feds, once they got deep into investigating OBH, came to believe that ARB had ordered that hit, that Johnson was a drug world rival who had to be removed, and that ARB had given the green light. The alleged shooter was a man named Tez Stewart, and here's where it gets complicated. Tez was OBH. He wasn't just some random triggerman AB called up out of nowhere. Tez was part of the inner circle. He'd been brought into the fold by Dark Lowe himself. They'd met during a prior prison bid and Lowe had vouched for him, brought him into West's world. Tez was family as far as that crew was concerned. According to prosecutors, Tez carried out the murder of Robert Johnson in exchange for about $10,000 worth of drugs, a hit for a package, and ARB allegedly celebrated. In fact, prosecutors said ARB was so comfortable with what happened, so unbothered by the concept of discretion, that he rapped about it. 4 days after Robert Johnson was killed, FBI investigators found lyrics on ARB's phone in a notes app. The lyrics read, "I'll have the whole city scared. Stand near homie, I call Tez and tell him bring dat and asterisk A's head to me." He used Tez's actual nickname in a song on his phone 4 days after a murder allegedly carried out by someone named Tez. AB's lawyer said it was a coincidence. The prosecutor looked at the jury and said, and I'm paraphrasing, either this man is the unluckiest musician who ever lived, or he ordered that hit. Think about that for a second. The man wrote the murder in verse. He saved it to his notes, and the Feds found it. That right there was the beginning of the end. The FBI was watching, and ARB was performing. Now here's the part of the story where you gotta understand how federal investigations work versus how the streets think they work. A lot of dudes believe the Feds only move when somebody talks. That as long as your circle is tight and nobody runs their mouth, you're good. That's street logic. But federal investigations are different animals. The FBI is patient. They watch, they listen, they build, and they use every single thing you give them publicly to build that case. ARB gave them a lot. Over the course of about 2 years, FBI investigators built a case using wire recordings, phone taps, pole cameras, little surveillance cameras they put up on light poles around the neighborhood that recorded everything coming and going, cell phone location data tracking his movements, text messages, and then, and this is the part that should have been a wake-up call for every rapper alive, his social media and his music. The Feds were watching his Instagram like it was a case file, and ARB was posting like he was indestructible, like the concept of federal surveillance didn't apply to him. He was posting with co-defendants, posting locations, and allegedly, according to prosecutors, posting evidence of crimes. One specific Instagram post prosecutors brought into court showed ARB and Blanding together in California. The Feds used that post to argue that the two of them had traveled out there to meet their cocaine supplier. A flex post, a we in Carly post, turned into Exhibit A in a federal drug conspiracy case. Airline records confirmed the travel. The Feds subpoenaed Delta, American Airlines, and United Airlines for travel records tied to social media activity. They cross-referenced his posts with flight manifests. That we in Carly picture wasn't just a vibe, it was a timestamp. The stash house raid, and then he rapped about it. At some point during the investigation, FBI agents moved on one of OBH's stash houses, the One Water Street Apartments in Old City, Philadelphia. Upscale building rented under fake names, tucked in a neighborhood where nobody would expect a drug operation to be running out of. Smart setup, but the Feds had the pole cameras. They had the wire, they knew. They ran in and seized 10 kilograms of cocaine, 10 bricks. At street value, that's $250,000 worth of product, gone, caught by the Feds, which means whoever had that coke was in serious trouble, and whoever ran the operation was about to feel that loss hard. Now, any rational person operating in that world would shut up, lay low, maybe act like nothing happened. Absolutely under no circumstances would you go into a studio, record a song, and drop it publicly addressing the raid. ARB is not a rational person operating in that world. He is an artist. He is an authentic artist, and the authenticity was his undoing.
And we came to the block, and there was 6 of us. We was gonna murder everybody on the corner, right? I didn't know one of my friends was on the corner, and we fired on the corner. And guess who's on the corner? One of my friends was on the corner. I fired on him. Turn the camera that way.
He dropped a freestyle called Beef Freestyle, and in it he rapped about the actual raid, on a song, available on streaming services and YouTube. He rapped, "$250,000 loss, got a broke heart and they snatched my dog. That's the worst part / one rat destroy everything you work for. I pray to God that he don't tell them who he work for." Let that sink in. He admitted the $250,000 loss. He admitted they snatched my dog, referring to a co-defendant who got grabbed. And then he literally said, "I pray to God he might get stabbed up in prison." The letter also reportedly included threats against the mother of Tez's children. Days before Tez was supposed to testify, he's getting letters signed by a name associated with the Black Mafia, calling him a rat, threatening to have him stabbed, threatening his baby mama. And the FBI found out immediately. When agents confronted Lowe about it, he confessed to writing the letters on the spot, but insisted he didn't mean it as a threat. "I don't see how that's threats," he actually said. "Sir, you referenced stabbing and rape in the same letter. In federal court language, that's very much a threat." Dark Lowe ended up pleading guilty to 1 count of witness intimidation and got sentenced to 7.5 years on top of everything else. Tried to protect his bail and ended up catching his own case for it. The whole OBH empire was disintegrating in real time. The trial, 2 weeks of ARAB's own content playing in federal court. The trial ran for 2 weeks in November 2019, and it must have been surreal to sit in that courtroom, because what prosecutors essentially did was run an OBH highlight reel and frame every highlight as evidence of a crime. Music videos played in court, Instagram posts, printed out and handed to jurors, the California trip photo, exhibit, the beef freestyle, played in open court while FBI agents annotated every line, the lyrics about Tez and the murder, read aloud to 12 people who would decide his fate. Former OBH members who had already pleaded guilty took the stand and filled in every gap the surveillance didn't cover. They described the operation from the inside, the fake name apartment leases, the California supply runs, the hierarchy, and how everything ran through Abdul West. Assistant U.S. Attorney Everett Witherell told the jury in closing arguments, every one of them had their hustles, but it all ran through Mr. West. ARAB's defense maintained the whole time that OBH was a real record label and that the music was just music, that you can't take street rap literally because the whole genre is built on exaggeration and mythology. It's a valid argument in theory. Rappers have been making that argument for 30 years. But the problem, the fatal problem, was that in ARAB's case, the traditional evidence lined up perfectly with the lyrical evidence. It wasn't just a song about California. There were flight records putting him in California. It wasn't just a lyric about Tez. There was a murder victim and a man named Tez who confessed to killing him. The jury convicted. ARAB, Blanding, Hickson, and Gadsden all went down. November 19, 2019. As the marshals handcuffed him and walked him out, ARAB smiled at his supporters in the courtroom and blew a kiss. Cold as ice, even in the moment of his downfall. Sentencing day, 45 years, arms crossed, zero remorse. On April 15, 2021, ARAB stood before U.S. District Judge Michael Bailson for sentencing. The room was tense. The prosecutor had already acknowledged that while the feds believed ARAB had ordered the murder of Robert Johnson, they had not charged him with that crime, and the judge made it clear it wasn't being factored into his sentence. Neither were the lyrics. This wasn't about the rap, Bailson said. This was about a lifetime of choices. Judge Bailson looked at ARAB and said, "You could have been a hero instead of a criminal, but you became a drug dealer. You made that decision. That's why you're being punished." ARAB sat there with his arms crossed. No tears, no visible remorse. When it was his turn to speak, he didn't apologize. He didn't break. He addressed the court the same way he addresses a crowd. He said, "The court, the FBI agents, and the prosecutors don't understand my culture. We don't rap about flowers and rainbows. We're gangster rappers. We rap about where we grew up, so we rap about drug dealing. We rap about violence." And there it is. Even at sentencing, even with 45 years on the table, he was still defending the authenticity. Still saying, essentially, "I rap what I live and I live what I rap," which is exactly what the government had been saying for 2 years. The judge sentenced him to 45 years in federal prison, 10 years of supervised release, and a $5,000 fine. Abdul West, 38 years old at sentencing, could be incarcerated well into his 80s. For a man who built his entire identity around being a street king in North Philly, he will likely die an old man in a federal facility because he couldn't separate the art from the evidence. His co-defendants, Blanding got 25 years, Hickson got 20, Dark Low separately got 7.5 for the witness tampering. Nearly the entire OBH roster was either dead, locked up, or on the run by the time the dust settled. What this really was. Here's the part that people miss when they tell this story as just a rapper got caught tale. This wasn't the feds cracking some elaborate code. Arab didn't get taken down by some genius prosecutor who found a hidden trail of breadcrumbs. He got taken down because he documented everything himself. The Instagram posts told the feds where he was and who he was with. The music told them what happened after the murders and the raids. The lyrics told them who gave the orders. The freestyle about the stash house confirmed ownership of the product that was seized. The California photos tied him to the supply chain. The notes on his phone, the ones written 4 days after a murder with the actual shooter's nickname in them, that was the bow on top. The FBI didn't need to be brilliant. They just needed to follow the content. And that's the real lesson here, the one that every street dude turned rapper needs to tattoo on the inside of their eyelids. In the age of social media, you are your